Let's start this deep dive with a question that honestly feels a bit strange to even ask.
Yeah.
Why do you feel the way you currently feel about yourself?
It feels strange because, well, that whole sense of who we are seems so natural, doesn't it? It's just there.
Yeah, totally elemental. Like it's always been part of us, you know, since we can remember.
Exactly. Like breathing or the sound of your own voice. It feels like the absolute core of, well, us. Our conscious mind just accepts it.
Right. So whether it's this deep down feeling of being okay, or maybe that constant nagging sense that something's not quite right, we treat our self-esteem as this fixed thing.
Well, like it's just a fact, something we were born with, maybe.
Yeah,
A personality trait set in stone.
what if it's not?
Yeah.
What if that feeling, that identity you've carried around isn't actually the fundamental truth?
What if it's less of a self-portrait and more like an echo, a reflection?
A reflection of someone else entirely. That's really what we want to dig into today, isn't it?
Mhm.
Challenging that idea that your self-worth is just yours.
Precisely. We're looking at what some call a fundamental law of psychological functioning. It forces us, really, to trace our self-esteem right back to its origins, often forgotten origins.
We're calling it the law of internalization, the hidden mirror.
And look, the idea itself, that insight, can hit you pretty quickly, but really integrating it, feeling it deep down and letting it change things, that takes time. That can be the work of a lifetime.
Okay, so let's unpack the principle itself, the hidden mirror.
At its core, it's actually profoundly simple. The way we feel about ourselves now today is basically an internalization. It's how other key people felt about us, or seemed to feel about us, way back when we were forming.
So, hang on, my self-esteem isn't necessarily measuring my current reality. It's more like looking in a mirror.
Exactly, a mirror that reflects the esteem or lack of esteem we were held in by others, especially when we were young, vulnerable, and completely dependent on them to tell us who we were.
Wow, okay, the implications of that are huge.
You really are. Think about the pressure you put on yourself, those standards you feel you have to meet.
That feeling of never quite being good enough, maybe, or always needing to push harder.
Yes. What we expect of ourselves now often mirrors what others seem to expect back then. And it goes further.
How so?
Well, your general outlook. Do you tend to feel like things will work out, or are you braced for disaster? That often reflects what your past generally brought you. Stability breeds hope. Chaos breeds, well, anxiety about the future.
But wait a second, doesn't that feel a bit too simple? I mean, we grow up, right? We have real successes, real failures. Surely those impact how we feel.
Oh, absolutely. Objective reality definitely plays a part, no question.
Like if I mess up a presentation today, I feel bad because I messed up, not just because of something from childhood.
Yes, you feel bad because you messed up, but how bad you feel, how you interpret it, that's where the echo comes in. Do you see it as a temporary setback, something to learn from?
Or do you see it as proof that you're fundamentally incompetent? A fraud.
Exactly. That interpretive filter, that's the internalized mechanism. The past doesn't usually shout, it whispers. It creates these emotional currents. You feel the shame now, but tracing it back to the source, that's hard.
That's the real difficulty, isn't it? We might get the concept, the mirror idea, intellectually.
But actually seeing our own reflection clearly, connecting the dots in our own experience, that takes work. The past covers its tracks pretty well.
Okay, so let's try to decode that reflection a bit. You said the mirror works both ways, positive and negative.
Yes. Let's start with the positive, because it's important to acknowledge that too. When that reflection is good, it's usually rooted in genuine affirmation from the past.
So if you're someone who generally feels solid, like you have this quiet sense that, okay, I'm a valuable person, I'm capable.
That feeling likely points back to a time when key people did affirm your value. Unconditionally, perhaps, or at least consistently.
And that feeling, I can contribute something meaningful.
It probably means that others back then validated your voice, your ideas, your efforts. They showed you that you could have a positive impact.
And what about just the general sense of okayness? Like, things might be tough, but they'll probably work out.
That often indicates a background where things were generally reliable, maybe not perfect, but stable enough. Your caregivers provided a sense of safety, so you learned to expect stability or at least resilience.
Okay, that makes sense. But you mentioned the negative side is where the biggest insights often lie.
Yes. I think exploring the negative internalizations often yields the greatest psychological dividends. These are usually the sharper pieces of that broken mirror, the ones that cut the deepest and we carry for so long.
So let's lean into those. Give us an example.
Okay, take that pervasive feeling, I'm just not good enough. It's so common.
Uh,
This usually isn't just generic self-criticism. It's often an echo of others who, maybe without even meaning to, didn't provide enough unconditional positive regard.
what do you mean by unconditional?
Love or attention that was conditional. You're good if you achieve this. You're worthy if you behave that way. The message becomes, your basic self isn't enough.
So the feeling wasn't about an actual flaw, but it got tied to an external condition back then.
Precisely. Or how about this one? That awful stomach-churning fear that you've done something wrong, even when logically you know you haven't.
Oh yeah, that free-floating guilt or anxiety.
That pervasive sense of dread often suggests a past where maybe you were constantly unpredictably accused, or maybe blamed for things that weren't your fault. Or perhaps something wrong was actually done to you and the fear and shame got tangled up and internalized as your inherent wrongness.
So you inherit this feeling of always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
An inherited sense of impending doom, exactly. And then there's that deep, heavy feeling of resignation.
Like, what's the point? I can't do anything right anyway. Or just feeling
Yeah.
hopeless.
Yes, that's rarely about one specific failure. It often reflects a history where others consistently treated you as if you were incompetent. Maybe your efforts were ignored or criticized or just taken over.
So you learn to believe you're incapable, not because you are, but because that's the message you received.
It came from their judgment, which you absorb as truth, and maybe one of the most painful feeling invisible.
Invisible. How does that manifest?
It's that sense that you don't really register on people's radar, that your presence doesn't make a difference. This often happens when primary caregivers were just unavailable, lost in their own problems, perhaps.
So a child's attempts to connect, to be seen, are met with emptiness.
Silence, indifference, distraction. And the child internalizes that pattern and thinks, I don't matter, my existence is unnoticed.
This is heavy stuff. And you're saying these feelings aren't just memories, are they? They're active.
Absolutely crucial point. We're shifting now from understanding the feeling's origin, the diagnosis, if you like, to understanding its consequence, how it actively shapes our present and future.
Because these aren't just scars. They're driving forces.
Exactly. This is where we see the active loop of suffering. The self-fulfilling prophecy kicks in. That internalized reflection starts to direct your reality now.
How does that work? Can you give an example?
Sure. Take someone who carries that deep belief, I'm a failure, based on that old reflection. Consciously or unconsciously, they might start acting in ways that confirm it.
Like not going for a promotion they could actually get.
Precisely. Or maybe they get the promotion, but then find ways to subtly undermine themselves because success feels wrong. It doesn't fit the internal script that says, you are a failure. So they create evidence to prove the old belief right.
Wow. That's tragic. We essentially sabotage ourselves to stay consistent with a past we didn't even choose.
It happens all the time. Or think about the person convinced they're boring.
Okay.
They go to a party, right? But they're so anxious about being boring, so busy monitoring themselves.
That they can't relax or be authentic.
Exactly. They seem stiff, maybe withdrawn, unengaged. And guess what? Other people respond to that lack of engagement.
And pull back.
Yeah.
Which confirms the original fear. See, I knew I was boring.
The fear creates the outcome. It's a vicious cycle. The original pain gets replayed over and over.
Okay, but hang on. If I recognize I'm doing this, say, sabotaging myself, can't I just, decide to stop, force myself to apply for the job or try to be more outgoing? Is tracing the origin really necessary if I need action now?
That's a really important challenge. And yes, behavioral change is vital. Action is necessary. But often, just trying to force a new behavior while the old underlying belief remains untouched, it's incredibly difficult.
Why?
Because the internal conflict creates huge anxiety. If you're acting confident on the outside, but inside you're screaming, I'm a fraud, I'm worthless, that tension is immense. Eventually, the system tends to snap back to the familiar, painful belief. The willpower runs out.
So understanding the origin isn't about wallowing in the past.
Not at all. It's about understanding the false premise the current loop is running on. It's like finding the faulty code in the program. You need to know why it's malfunctioning before you can effectively fix it.
It's the map, not necessarily the cure itself.
Beautifully put. It's the map that shows you why you keep ending up in the same painful place. We haven't just suffered once back then. We get stuck reinflicting it. That's why the investigation matters so much.
So realizing that our self-esteem isn't this fixed biological truth, but an outgrowth of specific experiences, often forgotten ones. What's the first step then?
The immediate priority has to be, stop taking your self-esteem as an unshakable given. Start questioning it. Treat it like an external observation, not an internal certainty.
Hold up that mirror, like you said, and ask, Who's holding it?
Exactly. Who was holding the glass? And crucially, what condition were they in when they formed that reflection of you?
Once you really absorb that principle, really feel its potential truth.
Then the door opens. It becomes possible to start reassessing your value, your potential, using a fairer, more objective lens. Your own lens, perhaps for the first time.
And this leads to what feels like the most powerful part of this whole idea.
Which is?
We don't have to keep judging ourselves through the eyes of the people who shaped us way back when. We can actually step away from that legacy.
Yes. Especially, and this is absolutely critical when we realize that those people, the ones who gave us our first estimate of ourselves,
Might not have been seeing us clearly at all.
they may have been too unwell themselves, too caught up in their own pain, their own issues, their own limitations to truly see the child in front of them accurately.
Their judgment wasn't really about us.
It was often filtered through their own stuff, their pain, their fears, their unmet needs.
Can we unpack that unwell idea a bit more? Because that feels key to the liberation. What does that look like?
Well, often it looks like projection. The caregiver isn't seeing the child as a separate person, but viewing them through the lens of their own history.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine a parent who has deep-seated fears about their own failures, their own inadequacy. They might look at their child and see any small mistake, any B grade instead of an A, as catastrophic.
Not because the child failed catastrophically.
But because it triggers the parent's fear of failure. They project their anxiety onto the child's performance. The child then internalizes, I am a failure. My mistakes are catastrophic.
But the adult, looking back, can realize, wait, the person judging me was terrified of their own inadequacy. I was just the screen they projected it onto.
Exactly. The judgment was never a pure reflection of the child's reality. It was distorted from the start by the judge's own issues.
Their critical voice wasn't about my competence. It was about the noise in their head.
And once you truly grasp that the source of maybe your deepest insecurity wasn't objective truth, but the limited, biased, perhaps pained perspective of another struggling human,
A perspective they probably applied to lots of things, not just me.
then that belief starts to lose its grip. It loses its authority over you. It's profound, really.
It's like realizing the judge who sentenced you was completely unfit to preside. The entire verdict is invalid.
The sentence is void. You were never guilty as charged. Self-esteem, you see, it's built. It wasn't something you were born with, fully formed.
Others laid the foundations, using whatever materials they had available, shaped by their condition.
But the building you construct now, the architecture of your future self, that's still in your hands. You get to choose the new materials.
So if those original judges, those initial mirrors, were operating from their own pain, their own unresolved stuff, what does that mean for you listening right now?
What freedom does that realization offer? The freedom to finally discard that inherited reflection, perhaps. To start seeing yourself more accurately, maybe for the very first time.
A final thought to leave people with.
Okay. Contemplate this. Pick one specific nagging negative belief you carry about yourself. That feeling of not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or I'm bound to fail. Trying to trace it back. When do you first remember feeling it? What was happening? Who is involved?
And
Then ask yourself, was that source, that person or situation truly equipped to offer a fair and objective judgment of your worth? If you suspect they weren't, if they were perhaps too caught up in their own struggles, what would happen if you decided right now to acknowledge that? Maybe even sit down and write that old belief a formal, definitive farewell letter. Thank it for trying to protect you, perhaps, but state clearly that its services are no longer required. What might change?